আমরা করব জয় আমাদের স্পেশাল অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদের সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ আজকে আমাদের স্পেশাল গেস্ট গ্যারি জার্নফেল্ড উনি একটা social worker in the GTA and we are very excited to have him today. So Gary, welcome to our show.
Julie, so good to be with you today.
Thank you. We'd like to start off by asking Gary a little bit about his background and how you came to this field of social work.
Sure. Well, 63 years old, look at the gray hair. I have been working with people now for 37 years. I graduated with a master's degree in social work in 1985. In terms of how I came to this, I came to it rather honestly in that I have or had two very nice parents. And they got along well and they were always engaged in volunteer work and community work. And so over time, I had an interest in psychology and from psychology shifted to social work and the rest is history.
Nice. So you've been practicing for about
37 years working with people, 35 years since I graduated. In many ways it feels like yesterday because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And I love working with people and to the degree to which I may be helpful, that makes it worthwhile.
So you're never going to retire? You're not retired.
You know what? I don't know that I'll retire. I may scale back or I may work differently. A year ago, moved to Keswick, Ontario, where we used to cottage. And so at least I'm in an environment that is, not city.
Yes.
So it's more relaxing. We have, a view of the lake. So it's not that I've retired, but I'm working from a more relaxed capacity. How's that?
Yes, I like that. That's a good retirement plan. Wanted to ask you, in the last 30-some years, what kind of dramatic change or any subtle changes have you seen with the kind of people that seek your expertise?
Good question. Things have changed over 37 years of practice. In many ways, life was simpler. We didn't have the internet. The economy overall was more stable. And so over 37 years, if we just look at the economy, the ups and downs have been more frequent and more severe. And with every downtick in the economy, we've lost better paying jobs. And then with the economy coming back, we have more jobs, but they're lower paying. And so this has had a tremendous effect on families. So now families where you used to be able to survive with a single breadwinner in the family, you can't anymore. Or, okay, you can, but it is really, really difficult. So for families to survive, we have dual income earners. And then if we have separated families, absolutely both persons have to be income earners. So that means we're also going to be, over time, more disconnected from our very own children because we're earning a living just to keep the lights on. So this adds stress. This adds stress. And so we saw the divorce rate rise. And, so along with that, how does that affect people?
Yeah.
Disconnected, more anxiety, more depression, way more anger. Enter the internet. Fabulous tool to connect us, to reach out, to learn about one another. Then Internet 2.0, we can communicate live in the here and now and with social media. But to keep that stuff alive, to cause it to grow, it feeds on controversy. So we're seeing more binary thinking. What do I mean by that? Black and white. You're either for me or against me. A lot of tribal disputes. I belong to this tribe, you belong to that tribe. Never the twain shall meet. And so we're seeing far more hate, far more anger, particularly in a sense where it is legitimized and then people talk about their free speech rights, which doesn't mean it's still right to slam other people.
Right.
So there's been tremendous changes, political, sociological, economic, and technological, that combined is making life more difficult these days. Long answer to a short question.
Yeah. So a lot of anger and a lot of animosity and.
Very much so these days. Very much so. So the folks that I would see in my practice, 10, 20, 30 years ago, they may not like the outcome. I've worked a lot with separated parents, but they'd still shake your hand. They'd move forward. They'd say thank you. In today's day and age, if people don't like the outcome, and it doesn't have to be with my practice, it could be something that they bought at the grocery store.
Yeah.
They're going to leave a vile review.
Yeah.
They're going to be very expressive of that. They're not just going to say, you know what, I had to return this product, how inconveniencing. Don't ever shop there. It's the worst place ever. And so we've offered people a platform to express their views, but these days it's expression on steroids. And it's hurting a lot of people. It's driving wedges. It propagates racism.
Yeah.
It propagates homophobia. And so you and I, we have to turn it around. We have to use these mechanisms for good.
Yeah.
We have to use it to connect healthily. We have to use it to spread reasonable information that is truly in all persons' interests. And it's a battle. We have to win it.
We have to win it. We're going to win it.
Yes.
One step at a time.
Yes.
One guest at a time. So Gary, your expertise has been working with separated parents. And so can you tell us a little bit about the impact on the individuals and their families?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No one enters into a relationship saying, and I hope in 5 years it doesn't work, or I hope in 10 or 20 years, and I hope we wind up in a big hot mess fighting over our kids. No one enters into a relationship looking for this. Unfortunately, not all relationships work out. And so we deal with grief, we deal with loss, we deal with fear. Will I have the same kind of relationship with my children as I would in an intact family? And so that drives worry on behalf of both separating parents. And when we look at the economy today, particularly in Toronto and large urban Canadian centers, housing is so expensive that many separating parents are forced into a situation where they still have to cohabit. So now I continue to share space with someone with whom I can't get along.
So you have had parents that are divorced, but they're living together under the same roof because
Correct.
Really?
They're not going to share the matrimonial bed.
No. Okay.
So then how does that play out as well in this day and age for children too? It used to be, we talked about alternate weekends and maybe a Wednesday overnight, typically for the fathers. The mothers were seen as the caregivers. That was out of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. By the time the 90s came along, and because of the influence of the women's movement, the men were saying, I can parent. Why not me? Why does it have to be mom? Maybe the mom should have alternate weekends. Maybe the children should, or maybe we can find a happy medium. So this has been a huge shift over the last 10, 20, 30 years as well, where the thinking isn't automatically going to that, children raised traditionally more by the mother or less so by the father. And both gender, and it could be, by the way, a same-sex marriage dealing with this as well. So all genders are having to grapple with, when we dissolve the relationship, how do we reestablish what our family is going to look like in a way that works for us all? And so these persons may come in with their own unconscious bias. I think it should be this, isn't that? No, I think it, So helping them to resolve these things can be very challenging. You have the children, and from the child's perspective, 99 times out of 100, I just want to be loved by anyone who will love me. I don't want to be dragged into the dispute. I don't want to have to choose. That's above my pay level. I'm supposed to be taken care of. I shouldn't be here wondering about your emotional capacity. You should be wondering about mine. So these are the challenges for separating parents today, very much so. Some parents, unfortunately, pull their kids into the middle. They may disparage the other parent to their children. I implore parents, do not do that. Kids look up and they say, I'm half of this parent and I'm half of that parent. And so if this one gets disparaged and I'm half of that, then half of me is bad. And if this parent reciprocates and says, well, this one caused me to look bad in your eyes, so I'm going to cause that one to look bad in your eyes, then the child internalizes that and says, I must be all bad because I'm of both of you. So what does that do for that child's esteem? It shakes it to the core. So you have kids, if I'm worthless, I may behave that way. Nothing matters. So maybe I will act out, or maybe I'll act in and withdraw. So we really encourage parents to manage their conflict, to seek help, to seek support as best as possible. Don't get into the court system, quite frankly, because it is a system that's adversarial in nature. I win to the degree to which I make the other parent look bad. Well, if I'm on the other side of that, being made to look bad, I'm going to reciprocate and make you look worse. And then we escalate the dispute. But if we go to other strategies, what we call peacemaking strategies, which isn't to say, I'm going to make you love the other person. No, it's peacemaking in terms of resolving the issues, not in terms of ever living together or having to even like the person. But in peacemaking strategies, mediation, we don't need to prove who was the worser of the parents, or something called collaborative family law, where if you feel you still need lawyers to resolve things, they can do so reasonably in a room, not in a courthouse, where we can sit round table and they can walk you through the conversation. Or you can meet with a counselor, or you can meet with, we call them divorce coaches, persons who can help you manage your own feelings in the process, so you bring your better self
to the table. Wow.
So it has formed a substantial part of my practice, not all of my practice, and I continue to do much of this work, but I no longer go to court. It's become way too nasty, and few people leave there feeling satisfied. And in today's day and age, if somebody doesn't like the outcome, you have to ask yourself, what's the likelihood of them following through meaningfully? So you can get a court order. Court order doesn't ensure appropriate behavior.
That's a personal responsibility.
That's right. But if we can come to an agreement through mediation or collaborative family law or counseling, then we have buy-in in terms of the outcome. And you may not love it, but because there's buy-in on both sides, you have a greater likelihood of both persons following through more meaningfully. And peace is important to children.
Great. We'll be right back after this short break. And I think for men, they process loss differently than women. And we're going to pause with the children, but can you tell us what strategies, there's got to be some actual concrete ways that we can reach out. Like you said, the divorce coach was a really great idea, and with the intention of not doing more harm, because you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you double. But it's really to respect each of our decisions and see how we can have this new created family with you co-parenting our
Yes.
children, right?
Yes.
So
It's not uncommon that one parent, and I'm going to use more gender-neutral terms because it can be a same-sex relationship. So one parent may have been the primary caregiver to the children, and another parent not, less so, more of the breadwinner or more instrumental in terms of their support to the family. And so the person whose support has been more instrumental, they're going to worry that if I'm not there on a day-to-day basis, will my image be kept alive in the mind of the child? Will I have a relationship? How will I have a relationship? So I have to take on more responsibility for that. If you have been the primary caregiver, there's a sense of a loss that I'm not going to have the same level of responsibility. I'm not going to have the same level of relationship that I experienced and enjoyed prior to the separation. So there's a lot going on for both. If we want to look more specifically at men and more gendered, if you will, men experience, as they tell me, some of these men experience it really as a fight for the relationship with their children. And they're doing what they can, and in it, from a gendered perspective, I have to be so careful how I talk about these things. From a gendered perspective, some moms wonder, why is dad taking an interest now? There wasn't the same level of interest expressed prior to separation. Well, that's because you were there. They weren't worried about keeping their relationship and image alive in front of the kids. But now that I'm on my own, that becomes my sole responsibility. So yes, I want more time with the children. Okay? Statistically, by the way, when we look at social science research, the degree to which children have a good relationship with both parents, those children generally have better emotional outcomes, psychosocial outcomes. So these men, or men generally in society, often have a more difficult time. We're men, we're stoic. I don't need help, thank you very much.
right.
It makes it more difficult for some men to reach out for help. Some women, some persons of any other gender, as they identify themselves, may also have that difficulty reaching out for help. We want to encourage people to understand that reaching out for help isn't a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a superpower.
Wow.
If more people realize that reaching out for help enables you to function on a higher level, I think more people would do it. They see it as a sign of weakness, some folks, in that, oh, I can't handle my own stuff, I gotta be stoic. Not to slam the Brits, but it's that British stiff upper lip scenario that invades many cultures. It doesn't just have to be British. But that stoicism also leads to many people feeling alone. It undermines their sense of agency. What do I mean by that? Their sense of capacity to affect change and manage things in the world. Because if you're there having to do this on your own, your strategies will be limited to only that which you can come up with.
Yeah.
If you engage with others and share and get input and learn alternate strategies, wow, it expands your repertoire. Then you have greater capacity, greater agency to address your problems, to feel heard, to have better outcomes where both persons can come away feeling okay versus trash. So, I encourage men, and interestingly enough, I am starting to see more men make first contact with me. Traditionally, phone rings, 99 times out of 100, it's a woman calling, setting up the call for counseling. But we are starting to see more men, so maybe they're getting it. This traditional feminism, I don't know what we call the equivalent of manism, but recognizing that we guys, we can be open, we can be transparent, we can wear our emotions on our sleeve, we can avail ourselves of help and guidance and counsel maybe some of the messages are getting through. Because that actually, I think, has been a slight but positive change.
Wow. That's
I've gone on for I don't know if this has helped.
No, this is great, and this is it's good news, because
Yeah.
I know we always talk about the problems or focus on the bad news, but this is really great that, you know, like the conversation is happening.
Yes.
And people are getting it, and you know, there's vulnerability in, you know, I don't have to do it on my own.
Yeah, and to those folks watching this who worry, if I go see a counselor, what do I say? Don't worry. The counselor will draw you into a conversation.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what to say, you just have to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, persons show up to see me for counseling, and I draw them in by being curious. What's going on? You know, what prompted you to make the call? How's life now? What are you grappling with? And it doesn't take long for people to engage.
Yeah. Make the move.
Yeah,
Make the first move.
yeah, just call.
Just call.
Just call.
What about the women? Is it traditionally the same, still the sense of fear?
So
Or-
in terms of separating and divorcing,
Yeah.
yeah, so they worry very much about the care of their children. Not to say that the men don't. I'm not trying to say that there's a better or worse or more or less. But if they have been the primary care provider, and of course, some of that worry may also be a function of the age of the child. It feels different when we're discussing a newborn, because people separate who have newborns, or a 2-year-old, a toddler, or a child about to enter JK or kindergarten, or a child who's, you know, a tween, and, you know, maybe they're reaching maturity and going through changes. So many moms worry about the care of their children not on their watch. That doesn't make them bad mothers. That makes them wonderful. And so to have faith in their former partner, or to be able to establish the kind of relationship where they can still partner as parents. So you and I, we're married, it doesn't work out, and now I'm responsible for the care of our children for whatever time. I should be able to come to you and not feel shamed, or that you're going to use it against me if I have to say, what did you feed the child? How, or when should I change a diaper? Or I should feel that you're going to say, Gary, you've got this. Here's what to do. I could send you a video of the last time I did it, right? So that it meets your need of making sure that I am managing things halfway skillfully. I can come to you and not feel it can be used against me as evidence I don't know what I'm doing, but we can honestly collaborate. Then the other piece separating parents have to realize is, quite frankly, we don't have to do it the same. We don't have to do it the same.
Oh, that's a big one.
Okay, you're a teacher, you teach grade 8, and however it is you manage your classroom, every teacher manages their classroom differently.
Right.
And if there's rotation, the child learns what this teacher wants, that teacher wants, and that teacher wants. Some classes, raise your hand. Some classes, speak out. Whatever. And the children learn the rules of the different classrooms. Children also learn, don't run out on the deck in the swimming pool. And they learn, run at soccer. These are diametrically opposed behavioral expectations.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They learn. And we would never say that this is damaging to a child. But if I want to have dinner at 5 o'clock and you have dinner at 6 o'clock and it changes their schedule, all of a sudden, that could be grist for conflict. It doesn't have to be. So I tell parents, just like the math teacher won't tell the art teacher how to handle their class, parents don't have to tell the other parent, I do it at 6, you better do it, you can't do it at 5. That's where conflict lives. And it's the conflict, putting the child in the middle of that, that tends to provide for the worst or the poorer outcome of children. Very few children suffer if they get dinner at 5 here versus dinner at 6 there. But many children do suffer if mom and dad or parents are going at it between themselves.
What a horrible place to be.
Well, yeah. So we can collaborate, and where we can't collaborate, because some folks just can't, then it's the phrase, tall fences make better neighbors. You do what you want on your side of the fence, I'll do what I want on my side. Don't even peek over. Now, I'm not talking about truly abusive situations.
Yeah.
Some parents may say, I think it's abuse, or I don't think it's best. They use the phrase, the best interests of children. This is best, that's best. Best is not fighting. Best is not fighting. Collaborate or leave each other alone. And differences in and of themselves aren't necessarily bad. Is this helpful?
Yes, it's very helpful. And it gives us a really great perspective of when we're in the storm, how to really plan for it, and to know that we're not alone.
Yes.
We live in a place in North America where we have access to a lot of great resources.
We really do.
Yeah.
We really do. And I encourage parents to avail themselves of those resources. It's sad enough, dealing with loss, the relationship didn't work out as we had intended.
Yeah.
We don't need to compound it by inadvertently acting out in a negative way on our bad feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. We'll be right back after this short break. So Gary, what kind of things do you see, or what kind of impact do you feel that it's having on the children after the parents decide to separate?
Right. So what is the outcome? What is the effect on these kids? Think about it. A child goes to school, and the child may be distracted, worried about what's going on at home, worried about where they're going to live, worried about a parent who may appear emotionally distraught. We talk about ADD, attention deficit disorder. This is attention divided by divorce. It's a different kind of ADD.
Wow.
Yeah. And so not every child who's distracted at school has this neurological condition. These are children that have weighty things on their minds too. Because the truth of the matter is, if it were you and I, we wouldn't be concentrating at work. We'd be worried, where are we going to live? How are we going to survive? What's going to be with our kids? We would be distracted. So our kids are distracted too. Their routines will be disrupted. The emotional support available by the parent can be disrupted. So if I'm dealing with my loss to you, I may be distraught, and here's my child needing me, and I may be too focused here. It's not about me being a bad parent. It's about, this is a traumatic experience in which we're all engaged, having to cope with. So we can see that in children's behavior. As I mentioned earlier, they can act out. They may not listen the same. They may have trouble sleeping, eating, concentrating. They may, what we call, act in. They may be more sullen, more withdrawn. Some kids act out physically, their distress. So whatever's going on for your child, we do want the parents to check in, but in a neutral way. So what do I mean by that? It's, how are you feeling, sweetheart? What's going on for you? How are you managing with this? Versus, what is the other parent doing? I hope they're nice. We don't want to talk in a way that ever undermines or disparages the role or place of the other parent. We do want to key in empathetically with the child's experience without putting things into the mind of that child. And depending on what we hear, we have to manage ourselves from being triggered sometimes on behalf of that child. Well, I'm this other parent, another parent said such and so about you. So we can go into defensive mode or stay in empathetic mode. And in empathy, we can say, you know what, sweetheart, you know, other parent is going through a tough time too. So we don't need to throw the other parent under the bus. Their relationship will rise or fall on the basis of their own behavior. We don't need to engage with that. We stay with the child. That's okay, sweetheart. And you know, we're all having a time adjusting. I was just curious how you were adjusting. Okay. So you know, other language we use, emotional intelligence. In the classroom, these kids may, their schoolwork may not be getting done because of withdrawal. They may be disruptive in the classroom. So again, to the teacher, who's managing too many children in any classrooms these days, all of whom have such a variety of needs and use of English language and whatever else is going on, that child in the classroom can be triggering of the teacher. The child's misbehaving, it's disruptive. So there the teacher also has choices.
Yeah.
And it could be settle down, or we walk up quietly to the child and go, I just think there's something going on for you, sweetheart. What might that be? Are you okay? And when we use that emotional intelligence versus power and control and punishment, when we connect, that's when most of us we're able to decompress, we're able to settle down, we're able to soothe, we're able to calm. And that's what we want parents to bring to their kids at a time when it's most challenging to do so. And it's what we want educators to also keep in mind for any of these kids going through heaven knows what in their little lives too.
Yeah. We see children in the classroom and, you know, they spend a big chunk of their day in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've had kids call me mom by mistake. And, you know, the reality is that, you know, we do form a bond, and to build on that relationship, to really check in. You know, I know a lot of times we worry about curriculum, but, you know, we need to really look at the whole child and perhaps also consistently connect with the family and kind of check in to see.
I speak with some parents whose kids may be having trouble at school, and the parents worry about how the teacher is managing their child. And again, the child can come back with any kinds of stories. Oh, the teacher was mean to me today, or this or that. And the parent in their own worry, concern, and upset may take that in and come back harshly to the teacher. Then the teacher and parent have to deal with that dynamic over the needs of the child.
Right.
So I really advise parents as well that if you have a concern with your teacher, with your child's teacher, empathize with the teacher as well, who's there in a classroom with, you know, not just your child, but 25 to 30 other children, and express, you know, here's what my child has come to me with. I don't know how to understand it. Before going into blame of the teacher. I don't know how to understand it. Here's what's going on in my family. I don't know if it's affecting my child in your classroom. Can we collaborate? Can we work together? And so in my experience, look, teachers have a lot on their plate, and in every profession we have better days and not as good a days.
Yeah.
But by and large, teachers want to do well. They're not in the profession to hurt kids. They want to be there to help kids. So the degree to which the parent can join with the teacher for that, and you can collaborate, then you can come up with a plan to better help your children. That's the thinking that I help parents hopefully to achieve, so that they can better care for their kids at these tough times.
And they have to be aware that they're the main advocate for their child.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I meet with parents at parent-teacher meetings, I say, you parent and me teacher, we're on team student X. It's not you against me.
We have a common goal. We want the best outcome for this child.
Yes, yes. And sometimes, you know, I know we want quick fixes. We want the A right now, but to really look at, child X and say like what is his or her need, and how we can accommodate for that, because there are lots of layers, and we see that in the classroom all the time, where kids are a lot of behavior because they might have some learning disabilities, or they might have some huge emotional mental health issues that they're not able to articulate because of stigma or what have you, and then they might be dealing with, we're talking predominantly about parents who have separated, but
Yes.
parents who stay together and there's
And
conflict.
there could be terrible conflict in the
Yes.
home.
Yeah.
Abuse, violence, drug or alcohol use.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on for any particular child in a classroom.
Yeah.
And they will bring that in emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come home after the teachers had to deal with them, and who knows what they're bringing home. I just want parents to know, make an ally of the teacher. And at the end of the day, you want the teacher thinking about your child, not how you are as a parent.
Right.
You want them to hear the message about the child, that you don't want the teacher to have to deal with how you present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So just parents, be mindful of that at a time when you're under duress.
Yeah. Recently I'm also noticing a lot of mostly boys who wear hoodies, and they have their hood. And so I happened to ask one of the kids, because I just had a feeling that it was more than a fashion statement. And I said, why do you want to have that? And he said, this is a kid in high school, he said, because, I just like it. And I was like, oh, what else? How does it make you feel? And as we kept talking, at one point I said, does it make you disappear? And he looked at me and he said, kind of. And I said, and then, he adjusted his hood, and then he took it off. And I said, me paying attention to the kids and why are they behaving, and it could be a certain way they're dressing. It's so obvious for me.
It's a tell. It's a tell.
You've got to pay attention to your child.
For the hat, and the
yeah, and
like
the way
this.
that their postures and all of that, right?
Clothes,
They're
don't look at me. I'm
Yeah.
hiding. I'm upset. I don't want to be discovered for what's
Yes.
going on for me.
Yes, yes.
But it's amazing, because when you reach out, it enables that child to remove the hood. It enables that child to be present.
Yes.
It is so transformational when we get it right.
Yeah.
It is so transformational when the parent keys in with empathy to their child, absent defensiveness or offensiveness about anyone else. The child comes to relax. It's not to say that the child likes the situation.
Right.
I'm Jewish. We use a phrase, tsuris mit tsuris. Tsuris means having troubles. We have troubles.
Right.
You don't want troubles on top of troubles. You don't want tsuris mit tsuris. So if I can engage with you, and yes, we still have the tsuris, but because I've engaged with you and you can manage it and you have more strategies and you feel heard and connected, we don't need to worry about the tsuris mit tsuris.
Right.
I don't know the equivalent from where you come from.
You know what? We want less trouble in any
Yeah,
language.
in any language.
Any language, any culture.
Okay,
any
so
religion.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a universal phenomenon.
it is.
We don't want to add to our troubles. We don't want tsuris mit tsuris. And so the degree to which we can engage, help people to feel heard, help these children to be expressive of their upsets,
Yeah.
they will perform better, and they will manage through the trauma of the separation more successfully. And that's what we want.
Yeah. And I think not even, for me, my hope is to go beyond and not just manage, to flourish, to be empowered, because the kind of world that you and I and the rest of us are envisioning is a place filled with kindness and love and empathy, right?
So coming full circle, I talked about a lot more fear, anger, hostility in the world. As we engage, you and me, as we use these strategies that we've talked about for engaging and being emotionally intelligent and being empathetic, that is the antidote to hate. That is the antidote to racism. this is the way we appropriately enable people to accept and get along with others. And so as parents, the classroom, as counselors, as social workers, this is what we're out to achieve.
Yeah. With that saying, thank you so much. I absolutely see your commitment to, I want to say global change, because the internet has opened up your platform to serving communities that transcends boundaries. So thank you for coming on this show. It's important that we collaborate and we reach out to expertise and people who are really in it with their heart. And together, I know we can make a difference in the world. So thank you for
My pleasure.
being here. And thank you for watching the show. Until next time, palatakun.